Imagine waking up one morning and hearing that the place you call home, the streets you walk every day, the backyard where your children play, is slowly poisoning you. At first, nothing looks strange. The houses look normal, the streets are quiet, children ride their bikes after school, neighbors wave to each other across white fences. Everything feels safe. But beneath the ground, hidden under layers of soil, something dangerous has been waiting for decades. Something invisible, something toxic. And slowly, year after year, those hidden chemicals began leaking into the soil, into the water, and eventually into people's lives. This is the story of Love Canal, one of the most shocking environmental disasters in American history. A quiet neighborhood that was unknowingly built on top of 21,000 tons of toxic chemical waste. And when the truth finally came out, an entire community had to be abandoned. To understand how this disaster happened, we need to travel back nearly a century. In the late 1800s, an ambitious businessman named William Love had a grand vision. He wanted to build a canal in Niagara Falls, New York. The canal would connect the Niagara River to Lake Ontario, providing cheap electricity for factories and industries. Workers began digging. For a short time, the project looked promising, but soon the money ran out. Construction stopped, and the canal was never completed. What remained was nothing more than a long, empty trench in the ground. For decades, it simply sat there, forgotten. Then came the 1940s. World War II had changed the world, and industries across the United States were producing huge amounts of chemicals. One company in particular, called Hooker Chemical Company, needed somewhere to dispose of its growing chemical waste, and the abandoned canal looked like the perfect place. Between the 1940s and early 1950s, the company dumped more than 21,000 tons of toxic chemicals into the canal. Thousands of steel barrels were buried underground. Inside those barrels were dangerous industrial chemicals. Some were corrosive, some were poisonous, and some were later discovered to be linked to cancer. After years of dumping, the company sealed the canal with layers of clay and dirt. On the surface, it looked completely harmless, just another empty piece of land. But underground, the toxic chemicals remained, waiting. In 1953, something unbelievable happened. The chemical company sold the land to the local school board. The price? Just $1. The company even included a warning in the documents saying that chemical waste had been buried there. But despite the warning, development continued. Soon, a school was built near the canal. Then, roads were constructed, and houses began appearing around the area. Families moved in, children played outside, gardens were planted. Life in the neighborhood seemed peaceful and ordinary. For years, no one suspected what was hidden beneath their feet. But slowly, strange things began happening. After heavy rainstorms, residents started noticing something unusual. Dark, oily liquids began rising through the soil. In some backyards, a black, sticky sludge appeared on the ground. Children playing outside sometimes returned home with strange burns on their skin. Parents noticed strong chemical smells in the air, especially after rain. Some families discovered mysterious liquids seeping into their basements. At first, people assumed these were small local problems, but over time, the situation became more frightening. Families in the neighborhood began experiencing unusual health problems. Many residents complained of constant headaches, dizziness, and breathing difficulties. Some women suffered miscarriages. Some babies were born with serious birth defects. Even pets in the area began getting sick. The once peaceful neighborhood was slowly becoming a place filled with fear and uncertainty. People knew something was wrong, but no one yet knew the true cause.
Everything changed in the late 1970s. A determined mother named Lois Gibbs began asking questions. She had recently learned that her son's school was built dangerously close to the old canal. When she discovered that toxic chemicals might be buried nearby, she became deeply worried. Lois Gibbs started talking to her neighbors. One by one, families began sharing their stories. Sick children, strange illnesses, chemical smells, basements filled with mysterious liquids. The more people talked, the clearer it became that something was terribly wrong. Eventually, government scientists were sent to investigate the area. What they discovered shocked the entire country. Tests of the soil, the air, and the water revealed something terrifying. More than 80 different toxic chemicals were buried beneath the neighborhood. Many of these chemicals were extremely dangerous. Some were linked to cancer, others could damage the nervous system, and some were known to harm unborn babies. Even worse, many of the buried barrels had started leaking. Rainwater had carried the chemicals through the soil, spreading them into homes, playgrounds, and streets. In simple terms, an entire community had been built directly on top of a massive toxic dump. When the news broke, the story spread across the United States. Television cameras arrived, reporters filled the streets. The country was shocked. Families living in Love Canal suddenly realized they had been exposed to toxic chemicals for years. Parents were terrified for their children. Many families wanted to leave immediately, but there was a painful problem. Their homes had become almost impossible to sell. Who would buy a house sitting on top of buried chemicals? Many residents felt trapped. They wanted to escape, but they had nowhere to go. As the pressure grew, the federal government finally stepped in. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter declared a national emergency in the Love Canal area. It was the first time in American history that a neighborhood environmental disaster had triggered a federal emergency. Hundreds of families were evacuated, homes were abandoned, schools closed, playgrounds became empty. What was once a lively community slowly turned into a silent ghost town. But the impact of Love Canal did not end there. The disaster forced the United States government to completely rethink how toxic waste was handled. Soon after, new environmental laws were introduced. One of the most important was the Superfund program. This law gave the government the power to clean up dangerous waste sites across the country and hold companies responsible for environmental damage. Because of Love Canal, thousands of toxic locations across America were eventually investigated and cleaned. Today, Love Canal remains one of the most important environmental warnings in modern history. It reminds us that the land beneath our feet can sometimes hide dangerous secrets. And it shows how ordinary people, when they refuse to stay silent, can force the world to listen. What began as a forgotten canal became one of the most powerful environmental lessons America has ever learned. And it all started with something hidden beneath the ground, something no one could see until it was too late. If you enjoy discovering forgotten and mysterious chapters of history like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next story might be even more unbelievable.